All right, don't go anywhere because we now have Emma Tucker, the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal, joining me. Emma, thank you. Appreciate you. So if you are not familiar with Emma Tucker, you should be familiar with Emma Tucker. Maybe we should wait, give everyone a second to come back in the room. Come stay. All right, if you're not familiar with Emma Tucker, you should because she is a legend in the news industry. Emma is intrepid and fearless, and one of the things that has made her a standout leader of the Wall Street Journal is that Emma has not been afraid to do what is best for the journalism, and often what's best for the journalism is what's best for making sure that you have a unified company that can back the journalism. And so you've made some really interesting calls. In terms of trust, you are in this interesting position where you need to earn trust amongst your own colleagues, your own cohort, while you're making these calls. What's the number one thing that you're trying to do to make sure that they trust you while you're leading them through this sort of chaotic time?
Well, I think I've been very consistent about my messaging to them, which is, so number one, I think something I've done very consciously is talk to my colleagues about the state of our industry. And actually, you're very helpful there because, you write about the challenges that we're facing as an industry. So what I'm trying to say to my colleagues is, yes, I know the Journal has always done things a certain way, but our industry is facing a crisis. You may not feel it, but we are. So you need to engage with that as journalists. And then secondly, I've been very consistent about we need to be delivering journalism that is compelling, useful, distinctive, and makes a difference to our readers' lives. It's not enough just for us to do journalism that we like. The reader has to be, or the audience, better put these days, has to be front and foremost of everything we do. And then I've said to them, if we really, really focus on that, and we deliver journalism that is useful, compelling, and that people will come back for, the attributions will follow. And I think after 2 years banging away at this message and not deviating and being willing to take risks with the stories that we publish, I think I have finally, eventually, somewhat grudgingly, not always grudgingly, earned their trust, because I think they can see that I'm serious about this distinctive storytelling that I feel we need to do.
Yes, I agree with that as well. In terms of the trust piece, you said taking risks with the stories that you're telling. Sometimes that requires a whole nother level of trust with your audience because you might be citing anonymous sources. You might need to be explaining more how you got to that piece of information so that they trust you. Do you feel as though in this era, news organizations and the Journal need to be more transparent about how they got to that story than they did before?
Yes, definitely. And I think the more we explain about how we do our journalism, the more our readers will trust us. It was interesting, it used to be that if the Journal spoke, that was all you needed. There was seriously, people would cite to me when I got there, well, we don't like to explain what we did, our journalism speaks for itself. And I think that was true not just of the Journal, but a lot of, established media brands. But now I feel, look, if we are quoting using anonymous sourcing, and trust me, anonymous sourcing is one of the things that we spend most time agonizing over. But in this news environment, you have to be able to, we will simply not be able to speak to people unless we can guarantee their anonymity. Now, we don't take it lightly. It's only for the most sensitive stories where we sanction anonymous sourcing. And when we do that, we want readers to know, and we're willing to explain. We have things on our website that explain this, that very senior editors know who those sources are and are confident in the legitimacy of those sources. But I think transparency is key. So we do more and more explaining. We get our journalists to talk about how they got stories. I think it's all part of a more conversational relationship that we have now with our readers.
When we think about new things that you need to do to innovate, AI, leveraging influencers, how do you make sure that you can develop trust while trying these new things that a lot of your readers might not necessarily be engaging with themselves? They might not know or be as familiar with every single kind of AI chatbot or technology, but you want to dive in. How does the trust carry over?
Well, I would say that our core values of fairness, objectivity, are so integrated into the newsroom. When we bring in new journalists, including those that we bring in to do some of the sort of more innovative forms of journalism that is represent a departure for us, We have very, very strict training protocols. We have to explain to any journalist working at the Wall Street Journal, you are here to tell stories for readers. You are not here to promote your own agendas. Objectivity and trust are key to what we do. So it's really, really embedded. We do town halls about trust. We talk about trust at every possible opportunity. And I think it's entirely possible for those sort of old-fashioned, that old-fashioned integrity to sort of underline everything we do, whether it's putting our journalists in front of cameras to give a hot take on something, or analysis. We do much more analysis than we used to do. But I think it's possible to be analytical, to have interesting angles on stories without undermining those core values.
Yes, and analysis, but not opinion.
Exactly, and there is a difference here. So people come to us in the moment, particularly at the moment, we're in this incredible news cycle. We've got stories breaking around on these complex issues, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's trade. They come to us to learn something new, but they also come to us for us to explain to them what's going on. We have a lot of expertise in the Wall Street Journal newsroom, so I'm very happy to put one of our Middle East reporters out there in front of a camera as things are happening to give us their take on what's going on. And that's very different from opinion. It's trying to put something in context.
Yes, it's very different, but I often think that as an industry, we have not done a great job, this is not a journal issue, of labeling everything as being different, which has caused confusion. In terms of trust with this current climate, there's got to be a trust politically that you're not sharing your opinions in the newsroom and that this is unbiased coverage. But you see all the time leaders bashing news outlets for having some sort of an agenda. Yesterday, I interviewed Linda Yaccarino. I asked her about a Wall Street Journal story, an excellent story on strong-arming advertisers, and she called the Wall Street Journal essentially a propaganda publication and called it fake news. Like, what is your response to that? How do you continue to make sure that people understand that it's unbiased journalism when political leaders are saying things like that?
Well, first of all, we're getting used to it. But, with that sort of, you're absolutely right, that sort of bashing, gaslighting, if you like. But, well, first of all, Linda Yaccarino said that nobody reads the Wall Street Journal anymore, so I don't know why she
said I do.
Well, good. And also, that's news to me because, we're 5 million subscribers now, so I don't think, I'm surprised at her take on that. And then secondly, look, free speech, we live in a free country, people can say what they want. It's not going to affect our approach to the journalism. And one of the things that I say to the newsroom, and I think they've taken this on board, is that we cannot think about the consequences of the stories we publish. And many of the stories we publish do upset political leaders or CEOs, but we can't, we have to be thinking about the validity of the story. Is it useful? Is it telling our readers something new? Not, oh my God, if we publish this, there's going to be a social media pile-on, or Linda Yaccarino is going to speak badly about us at Cannes. That can't be what our starting point. We have to not think about the consequences of what we publish if we think the story is worth telling.
How are you thinking about trust in terms of AI? I ask because your parent, News Corp, has this interesting relationship with AI companies. In some cases, it's struck big deals, like with OpenAI, and other cases, it's opted to sue AI companies. And then you're in the middle trying to cover AI as an industry. How do you think about objectivity amid all of that?
Well, I think we cover it like any other industry. In fact, we've got a very good scoop this morning about tensions between OpenAI and Microsoft.
I saw that with the acquisition.
So I think, like anything, we come at it with the same core values that we bring to everything. And then, of course, there's also the fact that we're embracing it in the newsroom as a useful tool to enable us to tell stories differently, to actually improve our journalism, allow us to do things that we weren't currently doing, to perhaps be more timely, but to wrap our arms around AI, because I do really feel that we have to, and if you wrap your arms around it confidently now as a newsroom, you'll get to shape it.
I really appreciate that. If you embrace it, you shape it. Just a final question for you. You are one of the top leaders in the news industry globally. Who do you trust?
Okay, that's a very good and important question. I trust the other big US news outlets, because I think Americans take their journalism very seriously. The legacy media take their journalism seriously. People aren't perfect, but by and large, I do. And I trust the big legacy brands who are staying core to their values. And that, I would include, for example, the BBC in that. some of the big British brands, the international brands. We're all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to deliver trusted news. So I have faith in that. And then, there are other, I trust the new newsletters. I'm a big reader of Axios, Politico, the people who've sort of struck out on a new path, but are delivering quality, sometimes niche journalism that is very, very useful for us.
Yep. I think I'm probably aligned with you there. Just a few key takeaways from this. When we talked about trust in leadership, key point from Emma is consistent messaging down about what it is that you are doing, talking to your colleagues about the state of the industry, making sure they understand where the business is, I think is very key. You said that your values underlying are always going to remain, no matter what type of venture that you get into. One shift that you said is, it used to be that if it was just published by the Wall Street Journal, it was trusted, and now it needs to be more transparent, verifying how you got to those sources. You mentioned that you have sort of an anonymous sources policy on your website, which I think is really, really smart thing to do. You're moving into a world where you are more audience first, which is why you're asking your newsroom to be embracing AI. And by the way, those core values that we mentioned, objectivity and fairness, I asked your response to Linda Yaccarino's allegations about the Wall Street Journal's reporting, and I thought that what you said was really compelling, which is you don't have to worry and you're not focused on the consequences of your reporting, just to do the job right. And then lastly, when I asked who you trusted, it's very, very heartening actually to hear that you trust the big legacy brands, because when we have situations like with what happened with Evan Gershkovich, you need that trust amongst the big legacy brands to protect the journalists. Everyone, a round of applause for Emma Tucker. And we've got another great program coming up here on experiences with consumers. We've got Dan Clancy, the CEO of Twitch, coming up. So please stay seated, and we're also going to get you lunch in a few. Talk to you soon.